I think the biggest reason America's so fucked right now is because the system in the United States, this specific brand of capitalism and consumerism and propaganda, sales, marketing oriented society, is that it is socialized. It has literally socialized everyone, for the most part, into believing that they're separate, they're all on their own, and that the only way to survive is to go, 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 no matter what, and survive at all costs, because life is dangerous and you're all on your own and there's nothing to catch you. There's nothing to save you. And you can only be a part of society so long as you can afford to. You can only be a part of a friend group so long as you can afford to. The moment your shit falls apart, people don't want to be around you. That's the way the system works. So it's systematic separation. And because of that, Americans just literally can't bring themselves to give a fuck about the plight of anyone else. Americans and anyone within a system like this will collectively always choose self-comfort over all else, because being uncomfortable is dangerous to the people here. There's an extreme fragility here because there's been so much posturing. People have basically put all their energy into keeping up appearances, creating an image, creating an identity, identifying with something. And this is across the spectrum, right, left, rural, city. There's been this incredible surge over the past 20 years, 30 years into identity obsession. Like, I'm country, I'm redneck, or I'm woke, or I'm they, them, or I'm he, or I'm her, or I'm a man, or whatever. It doesn't matter. It's been an obsession. And with incredible identification, there's big feelings because everything, for the most part, is taken personally when it has to do with criticizing or questioning your set identity or anything that you connect with your constructed identity. And it has everybody's nervous systems so amped up that biologically, when you're in that fight or flight, you literally can't be too concerned with the plight of others. And the further away somebody, the better. So the global south, which everybody knows we are actively exploiting for resources, for food, for everything else, for pennies on the dollar, nobody can really muster up the emotional bandwidth, the emotional capacity to actually take that in and give a fuck, and much less put themselves in the shoes of said people. Or what would really move people is imagine their most beloved in the shoes of such folks in the global south, or like in the US, on the streets, or in the ghettos, or in the poor ass hills and mountains or deserts. The poverty in this country is unreal, and it's completely crazy because countries that have per capita income like ours live so well. So much is taken care of, so much less has to be worried about. There isn't this like survival, fight or flight, creating all kinds of drama bullshit going on like there is here. Now, every country has its bullshit. Don't get me wrong. You talk to anybody from anywhere who's a thinker, who's an intelligent human being, they're going to point out all kinds of stuff they don't like. Unless they're horrified, like say in North Korea, or really in China for the most part. That's been my experience while I lived in China. You don't talk about the government there. Yeah, so don't expect Americans to give a fuck about anything that threatens their comfort. And the reason for that is because the U.S. really, the American system has an incredible way of systematically traumatizing the nervous systems of the people living here. Incredible levels of anxiety, uncertainty, depression, rage, flies off the handle in this direction, flies off the handle in that direction, flies off the handle in this direction and that direction. It's all over the place. But what you find very few of in the United States unless it's somebody who recently came or is of, like, say, Hispanic roots, oftentimes multi-generational, where there's a lot of connection. What you won't find very often is a regulated nervous system, a human being with a regulated nervous system who feels really connected with others and engages in leisure that isn't super competitive and that they just do for joy and for pleasure, that's somewhat healthy, that's not always like gaming and eating junk food, which isn't what everybody does here. But people I know who have hobbies, even generally, they're pretty competitive with them. See, I think what the US does is it creates so much imagined horror, so much imagined horror in the news, in the movies, in the media, in the TV, in what parents warn their kids about, in the police presence, in everything in the US. There's this threat of impending doom down the line. And this super like apocalyptic and this super apocalypse focused society, I think largely because of the puritanical Christian roots of this country, which have always maintained incredible amounts of power. And of course, there's an element of that with all the Abrahamic religions, but the brand of Christianity that took root in the US, which is the same sort of Christianity that was involved in all the European atrocities, both with under the Catholics as well as the Protestant wings, genocides, just, inquisitions and witch hunts and all this stuff. That's the same brand that's here. And that brand of Christianity always needs an enemy to go after so that people can unite together and feel superior, feel better, and then they can go get people. This even predates white supremacy. White supremacy was just a really convenient new one to create in order to morally justify exploiting the entire world. Whew! Genocide, slavery, exploitation, rape, you name it, all because of this brilliant invention of white supremacy, which is actually a nightmare for all of us, whites included. And so is this way of living where you're talking about the apocalypse and scaring the shit out of everybody in the society about some impending doom. Because even if you're not Christian, there's still this created sense that impending doom is always around the corner in this country. And it kind of is. Because if you go where homeless people are, you'll see quickly what happens to people when they don't have community, when they don't have a job. And guess what? We don't have fucking community here. People are like, oh, I'm in a community. Like, no, you're not. You're in a social group that requires you to keep up. And if you don't keep up, if you fall off for real, they are not going to help you. Very rarely will you find that in this country. And families here, for the most part, despise each other. It's wild, man. It's a wild, wild place to live. It's so alienating if you're a sensitive person. So alienating. Highly not recommended. I was really hoping Americans would choose wisely last election, and they didn't. Americans failed themselves and they failed the world. And my only hope is that the suffering that will be coming, that really has to be coming for the American people and maybe the entire global north, is not completely catastrophic, and that order is found and that people are forced to come back together, band together, and understand what connection and community feels like again. And we can begin to craft a new earth, new systems that ask the question, how do we serve? How does the system serve? How do we serve the system? How do we serve each other? And the system embodies that. The system that we create embodies and puts as a priority actual human needs, which are number one, connection. Number two, food sustenance. Most people say, no, it's food sustenance. No, it's food sustenance. That's not true. You've been tricked into that. For human beings to be human beings, even more than food, is connection. And primates will prioritize connection and warmth over food. But yeah, of course, food, housing, leisure, fun. That's all you're trying to get with your money anyway. Those things. That's all anybody's trying to get with that money. those things and security. We can create a secure society where people take care of each other, where people look out for each other. I know it. I know it.